Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today in this video we are going to learn about the summary and the most important MCQs from the poem Because I Could Not Stop for the Death, written by Emily Dickinson. First let us see the summary. Because I Could Not Stop for Death, written by Emily Dickinson, is the most discussed poem because of its haunting tone and unusual theme. According to many critics, the poem shows death as a lover escorting the female persona to an unassured paradise. The first stanza represents an apparently cheerful view of a grim subject. Death is gracious. He comes in a vehicle connoting respect or courtship, and he missed the death, stops by her abode means house, to fulfill his promise. The lady then speaks of the vehicle or the carriage which was meant to carry them both and immortality. In the second stanza, Death's slow and determined attitude is felt by the lady, and is reflected clearly. Death knows no hassle because he has enough power and time. The speaker now acknowledges that she has put her labor and leisure aside. She has given up her claims on life and seems with her exchange of life for death's civility. A civility appropriate for a suitor, but an ironical quality of a force that has no reason for rudeness. In the third stanza, it creates a sense of motion and of the separation between the living and the dead. The lady who is taken away to come to other world by death describes the places they cross over. She says, "We pass the school where children enjoy playing their funny but unsymbolically meaningful games. We pass the fields of gazing grain and pass the setting sun." However, in the fourth stanza, she becomes troubled by her separation from nature and what seems a physical threat. He realizes that the sun is passing them rather than they the sun, suggesting that she has lost the power of independent movement and that time is leaving behind. Her dress and her scarf are made of frail materials, and the wet chill of evening, symbolizing the coldness of death, assaults her. In the fifth stanza, the body is shifted to his permanent abode, that is, grave, whose representation as a swelling in the ground portrays its sinking. The flatness of its roof and its low roof supports reinforce the atmosphere of dissolution and may symbolizes the swiftness with which the dead are forgotten. And the last stanza implies that the carriage with driver and guest are still traveling. If it is centuries since the body was deposited, that it is the soul that is moving on without the body. It is moving towards its destination, eternity. Eternity and death are too important in this poem. In fact, eternity is a state of being. Dickinson believed in an eternity after death. Agreeably, one can say that Emily's sole purpose in this poem is to show no fear of death. The poem puts an immortality through an act of mere creativity. And this is the summary of the poem. Now let us see the important MCQs from this poem. First question. The poem Because I Could Not Stop for Death exercises thought between known and unknown. Second question. Critics call this poem a masterpiece with strange, haunting power. Third one. Through this poem, Emily brought to light the mysteriousness of life's circle. Fourth, the poem explores the speaker's journey with death, personified as a kind suitor, and their transition into the other life, afterlife. Fifth, the poem uses symbolism and imaginary to represent the stages of life and the inevitability of death. Sixth question, what is the central theme of the poem? the inevitability of death and the transition to the afterlife. Seventh, how is Death portrayed in the poem as a kind and civil gentleman? Eighth question, what does the carriage symbolize? A journey through life, a journey through time, and a journey into the afterlife. Ninth question, what do the children playing in the schoolyard represent? They represent the beginning of hard work in life. 10th, what does the setting sun symbolize? The end of life. 11th question, what are the wedding clothes symbolize? The speaker's transition to the afterlife. 12th, what does the house the speaker passes represent? Her grave. 13th question, what is the tone of the poem? Calm and accepting. 14th question, what is the significance of the poem's title? It emphasizes the inevitability of death. 15th question, what does the phrase "we past eternity" suggest? The speaker's eternal existence in the afterlife. 16th question, what literary device is used when death is described as a person in "because I could not stop for death"? Personification. 17th question, what do the horse's head in this poem symbolize? The fate of the speaker heading towards eternity. 18th question, what poetic device is used to compare life to a journey in a carriage in this poem? Metaphor. 19th question, how is death described in the poem? Cold and indifferent. 20th, what does the mention of gossamer and tulle in the speaker's clothing signify? The chilly, cold nature of death and the speaker's inefficient preparation for it. 21st question, what does the speaker realize at the end of the poem? She realized that her new existence in eternity has begun. 22nd, what scenes does the carriage pass through? Children playing, grain fields, and the setting sun. 23rd question, what metaphor does Emily Dickinson use to describe her experience of dying in the poem? A carriage ride. 24th, who is he in the second line of the poem? Death. 25th, chill and till is an example of approximate rhyme. 26th, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too. What is meant by these lines? The narrator will never again work or participate in any other activity. 27th, which words could be used to describe death in this poem? Civil, polite, gentlemanly. 28th question, what is the rhythm of this poem? Regular using iambic pentameter. It's regular and by using iambic pentameter. 29th, in which stanza is this rhythm disrupted? 4th. 30th, what is Dickinson's posthumous nickname? The Belly of Amrest. 31st, what's the original title of the poem? The Chariot. 32nd question, the poem was edited by her two friends, Mobile Loomis and Thomas Wentworth Higginson. They titled the poem The Chariot. 33rd, the poem was published in 1890 posthumously, means after her death. 34th, if the word get great means anything in poetry, this poem is one of the greatest in English language. Who said this? Ellen Tate. 35th, how many stanzas make up the poem? 6 stanzas. 36th, which of the following correctly describes the stanzic structure of Emily Dickinson's poem Because I Could Not Stop for Death? 6 quatrains. That is 4-line stanzas. 37th, what type of poem is this? It's a lyrical poem. 38th, He knew no haste. Who is he? Death. Haste means hurry. 39th. What did the speaker do before her death? Put away everything she had. 48th. Who is personified throughout the poem? Death. Here, in this poem, figures of speech used is personification. Personification means if you give a human qualities to the non-living things or any other things, we call it a personification. So here, death is given a human quality. So here he is personified as a human. So this is called, the figure of speech used in this poem is personification. Next, 41st question. The carriage stopped before a house. 42nd. We paused before a house. What does the house indicate? Her grave. 43rd. What does grazing grains indicates? It indicates life, engage, etc. 44. In the fourth stanza, the school symbolizes poet's childhood. 45th. The horse had pointed towards eternity. 46th. In the poem, death is in the form of a gentleman who drives a carriage. 47. The only companion she had in the carriage was immortality, means to live forever, eternity. 48. How many times is the chariot stopped? 2 times. 49th question. Why is immortality a guardian in the poem? Because it acts as a guardian in the transition from life to death. 50th question. Why is the phrase "we passed" repeated in the poem? To show all the human beings pass away eventually. 51. The dews drew, quivering and chill is an example of alliteration. 52nd question. We pass the field of grazing grain, we pass the setting sun. Anaphora, figure of speech, where various sentences or verses begin with the same word. Example, here in this sentence we see a figure of speech, anaphora, used. Anaphora means it is a figure of speech where various sentences or verses beginning with the same word. For example, we pass the school, we pass the field of grazing grains, we pass the setting sun. And here in the 51st sentence, we see the dews drew, quivering and chill. And here the figure of speech used is alliteration. What is alliteration? In a sentence, if a particular alphabet is repeatedly used in a sentence, then the figure of speech is called alliteration. Next, 53rd question. One of the perfect poems in English is Chariot, because I could not stop for death, and it exemplifies anything else. Who said these words? Ellen Tate. 54th question. Emily Dickinson is known as Poet in White. 55. Emily Dickinson is also known as Queen of Calvary. 56. How many poems were discovered after Emily Dickinson's death? 1800 poems. 57. Her poems were numbered, not titled. 58. Emily Dickinson had literary affinity towards Emerson. 59. Samuel Bowles is the newspaper editor who published the first poem of Emily Dickinson. 60th question. Bowles is the newspaper editor who published the first poem of Dickinson. 61st. The Springfield Republican newspaper published a number of Dickinson's poems. 62nd. Jane Eyre's books had a transformative effect on Dickinson. 63rd. The poem Because I Could Not Stop for Death was edited by Dickinson's friends Mabel Loomis Todd and Thomas Wentworth Higginson, and they gave the title The Chariot to the poem. 64. Emily Dickinson's sister Lavinia found out her poems after her death. 65. Dickinson's considered female imaginary person in the speaker of the poem because I could not stop for death. 66. Complete Poems of Emily Dickinson was the title of 1945 collection that brought Dickinson the most posthumous fame. 67. If flame belonged to me, I could not escape her. This was written by Emily Dickinson. 68. The title My Words Are Laid Away in Books is the name of a biography about the life of Emily Dickinson, and this was written by Alfred Habecker. 69. Longfellow is the poet Dickinson often quoted in conversation. 70th question. Emily Dickinson is an American poet. Yes, this is all for this video. Hope this video would be very useful for your exams. Kindly like, share and subscribe my channel for more videos like this. Thank you. Meet you in the next video.